And g'day and welcome. We have a fantastic guest here, Brian Herring, and we're here to support First Robotics, which is helping with supporting with math and science education for people all around the world. So don't forget to hit the link, head on down there, donate some money and help kids learn more about science and math and everything like that. My name's Adam Lokovich, or Uncle APOC as they sometimes call me, all the way from the sunny Gold Coast here in Australia. And I'm talking to Brian Herring here, who is a master of puppets, which you could actually put that into a song title somewhere. I'm not too sure how, but we'll see how it rock and rolls.
I can tell you a story about that in a second. Hi, Adam. Hi, 501st. Nice to be with you. Thank you very much for having me.
We love having you here, and thank you so much for taking some time out here, helping us with our event and helping us raise some money for First Robotics, which again is a great cause. Hit the link, guys, down there. Well, we all know that you've been in the industry for a very long time. Most of the people in the 501st really want to know about a certain little robot, BB-8. For some reason, I'm not too sure why. He's quite popular. What are your thoughts on that little fella, and what's the best thing about him that you love?
Well, he did quite well, didn't he? People warmed to BB-8. I mean, we didn't quite know when we went on to the job. I mean, it's a bit of a background, really. I'd been working as a puppeteer for, I suppose, 25 or so years up until that point, and I wound up speaking with Neil Scanlon at one point, and Neil Scanlon is the head of the creature shop for Star Wars, and I was saying that I knew Star Wars was coming in, but we didn't know who had it, and I was going to have to find out who it was and kick their door in, and Neil basically said, don't do that, because I like the door where it is. And he said, don't worry, I'll find you something. And he employed me as the puppeteer consultant for the whole movie. So it was my job at the time to go in, help cast the performers, and work out how we can put people into some creative positions and still have them be able to perform and not run out of oxygen, or where we can cut holes in the set and where we can put them. And that was initially my job on the movie. And then we were doing various bits of R&D, research and development, on great big creatures like the Lugger Beast and the Happer Boar, and we were doing some very early work on possibly doing Maz Kanata as a puppet. And then these designs for this little round robot started coming through. And Josh Lee, who is, I like to call him BB-8's dad, Josh built this tiny little puppet about this big, made out of a polystyrene ball with a little head on the top. And I went away and did just a little quick character study, just in black, against black, and rolled him around just to see what kind of an emotional performance you could get out of half a sphere on top of a ball. And so we showed that off to J.J. Abrams. He said, that's great, do it like this. So that was when BB-8, they always wanted it to be a practical effect. J.J. definitely wanted to have a character that was on set with Daisy and John, so that they could interact with it. And J.J. really wanted to make a sequel to Return of the Jedi like it was 1986. So he wanted men in rubber suits with heads on, and he wanted to do it as practically as possible to give it the feel of old Star Wars. So Josh built this little puppet, and then they went, right, do it like that. So Josh and another gentleman called Matt Denton, another guy called Giles Hannigan, they went away and they expanded that into a kind of a raft of about 7 different puppets, which were designed by initially Christian Ortman and then Jake Hunt Davis. And that's how BB-8 came into being. And then Dave Chapman, who's the other puppeteer who works for me, came on board, and we went away and we found the little fella's character. And while we were doing this, we liked it. We thought this is quite a fun little thing, because it looks like R2-D2, but it doesn't look anything like R2-D2, really. It just looks like a kind of a development of R2. But we were never entirely sure how the general public were going to take to it, because R2-D2 was such a huge fan favorite. And were we going to be accused of, oh look, they just made it like a knockoff R2? And so we knew that the crew liked it, because British film crews, if they don't like what you're doing, you just know. Yep. But they sort of like, oh, we like your little round robot, Brian, that makes us laugh. So we thought, okay, the crew like it, and we thought it was quite sweet, and we thought we were getting some funny stuff out of it when we were looking at it back. And then the trailer dropped, and the internet for about 12 hours just mauled it. Just said, oh, look, Disney have made this toy commercial, and that's not real, and you can't do that practically. And there were some great quotes on a practical effects group that's on Facebook that we used to read, and they're like, there's no way they're doing that practically. And of course we were. I mean, yes, I was being removed from an awful lot of it, but it was a practical effect. And then Mark Hamill went onto Twitter and said, you do know that's real. And so suddenly then, Twitter's and the attitude of the internet changed slightly. And then the movie came out and everybody just went crazy for it. So we were quite pleased that it was embraced, and we didn't realize quite how popular it was. But I was doing a film with Tim Rose, who did Admiral Akbar, and Tom Wilton, and we were out in India. We were in Mumbai, and I was walking down Mumbai High Street, the main street in the shopping street in Mumbai. I looked in the window, and there is BB-8 in the window in India, and it's like, this has just got everywhere. This thing. So it was an amazing thing to have been a part of, and we're just really proud that we were talking about. Dave and I were talking about it really early on because we're both massive Star Wars fans, and my thoughts for it were I wanted to be part of a character that you could stand next to R2-D2 and Yoda and Chewbacca, which were my favorites as kids, and go, that is part of the same universe and part of the same story. And I think BB-8, I think we achieved that with BB-8. And again, it's a testament to the people that designed it and the people that built it and the way it was used in the script as well. And we were just lucky enough to be able to come in there and perform that and add our layer on top of that. And then, you've got the guys who do the sound as well. They add their stuff to it as well. So it was a massive collaboration and digital as well, because I'm being removed from it a lot of the time, or there is a completely digital version of it or whatever. So it's every tool in the box, and it was really sweet to be a part of that.
And I think that's what blew everyone's mind with BB-8, where it was a practical effect. It seems that we had that, the Phantom Menace and everything like that, where Star Wars went super digital and everything was digital here, digital there, and it's gone back towards the practical props. And do you see any real reason why, or they just wanted to get the films back into getting more realistic, I suppose?
When you look at you can talk to Lucas, and so we're here to talk about Lucasfilm generally. As this whole thing is a celebration of Lucasfilm, and George Lucas has always pushed the envelope on all of this stuff, be it sound, be it digital technology, with any of these things. And so with what he did with the prequels, he pushed it and pushed it and pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And then with any of these things, people take what they like and what the best parts of the best aspects of any of that technology is, and then when you start combining it with old school stuff, you can because you couldn't have done BB-8 in 1977. You couldn't have done it because you couldn't have removed the puppeteer, which is me in this particular instance, from the picture, and you couldn't have had him rolling around. The technology didn't exist. But when you then make BB-8 into a practical prop, and you can actually remove me using modern technology, you can take the old stuff and the new stuff and mash it together. And I think because they went, really hard on we shot everything on location. We didn't use a great deal of green screen on the Force Awakens and then the subsequent other ones. So there is a certain sense that you can touch everything. I put a dent in the door of the Millennium Falcon and the doorway into the cockpit with BB-8 on the first day. I got him up there because there's an axle that sticks out the side of BB-8. And they said, can you get him into the cockpit? And I went, yeah. And I went at it at speed and just took a chunk out of the door. And it's just like, I dented the Millennium Falcon with this robot. Someone's going to kill me. And they just went, no, just put some paint in it. It was fine. But, with any of that set, you can just lean on it, and it's just, they're real. And you can tell. I think the actors really appreciate that, and you can feel when, like, if you were to walk on a set like the casino at Canto Bight, which was built on the James Bond stage, and it was huge. It was ridiculously big, and there were, I think we had around 60 characters, 60 creatures on that set alone, and then there was another 150, 200 extras that Michael Kaplan had just dressed beautifully. And so when someone shouted action and the whole thing just went, it was just this amazing environment. And you can recreate that digitally, but it doesn't feel real. And obviously that set was added to digitally. So when you take those the digital aspect and combine them with the practical, I think you end up with magic.
Yeah, I'm a set painter myself here on the Gold Coast, and I've been finding that they're going back to building more practical sets and making more of it, and then adding the digital stuff onto it, which is great, you know, particularly for the part of the business that I'm in.
Exactly.
We get to paint more.
Working.
So
it keeps everybody working.
It does.
It's great. Yeah.
It's not just the digital guys on their computers and everything like that.
Exactly. Yeah, and also they do make for more interesting making of documentaries as well.
Yeah, much more. Otherwise, here's some green screen. Here's some blue screen.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. Now, you're not just famous for that little round robot. You've done a whole lot of other different things, different styles. You've been in suits. You've done Muppets, the Muppet movies, the Hoobs. I have a 6-year-old, so I've actually watched the Hoobs quite a bit.
Is the Hoobs on in Australia?
Yeah, well, it was for a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, it went everywhere.
He's grown out of that a little bit.
Sure.
As you can see behind me, I've got 2 Muppets, and before my son was born, I made them for him because they're the only brothers he's going to have, which is great. So we have a lot of fun with those guys there. And what sort of is your favorite style of puppet? Because I mean, the spitting images again are those rubber faced ones. That kind of thing. So what would be your favorite style?
Well, I don't know if I have a favorite style. I think a lot of it comes down to the production you're doing, and whichever serves the show best is the best one to do. I mean, I like this kind of stuff, you know, the Muppet, the hand up Muppet stuff, sort of hand and rod, the Kermit the Frog style puppets. That's good because you invariably get to do the voices with those as well, and that's a lot of fun when you're running through scripts and hitting lines and doing all that kind of stuff.
100%.
Then you've got the same kind of thing with spitting image, except they're much bigger and much heavier. So because they're all real size, they're full size, because the hands are actually real hands, so they are monster. They're brutal. But I mean, spitting image was the first puppetry job I ever had, and I lied at the audition for that. So I kind of blagged my way into puppetry. It was never anything. I grew up on the Muppets as a kid, but it was never something I went, I must go and work with puppets. It's my calling, and it really wasn't. I was an actor, and I was doing sort of various bits and pieces in the theatre and stand up and stuff. But I blagged my way into an audition for spitting image and lied and said I'd done a tour of Little Shop of Horrors, which was technically true because it had come through my local theatre and I'd moved the scenery, but I'd never touched a puppet in my life. And then spitting image took me on as a trainee, and then 6 weeks later I was on television. It was just a ridiculous thing, and I'm still waiting for somebody to come in and go, "You lied!" Out you go, you know, you just sort of throw me out. Although hilariously, they brought spitting image back last year, and we're about to start our 2nd series of that. So it's kind of nice to be back almost at the beginning. And then you've got little kind of rod puppets and stuff like Bon Raku, things like, I suppose, Babu Frick would be an example of something like that, which I didn't do in the movie, but I did a lot of the R&D for. So with Babu Frick, he was only this big. And he had an amazing animatronic face that was performed by Shirley Henderson and Matt Denton. And Gustav Hogan, our head of animatronics, he crammed so much expression into there in that head. But there were 1, 2, 3, 4 puppeteers directly behind that were removed digitally from that from that scene, and so there was somebody else doing the hands. So there was 4, 5, 6, 7 people operating that one character, and they all have to be in sync and that kind of stuff. And that's fun too, to work in a team to that extent. And then you get to work on giant puppets. I did the Olympic opening ceremony in 2012 in London. And there were, I think, 12 or 13 of us doing a giant Voldemort puppet, which was kind of an underslung marionette. So we had ropes that came out of it and was suspended on a crane, and it came out of this big bed. And then we were all running around underneath it, making the thing move. And that was fun. And another giant puppet was Proxima, Lady Proxima in Solo, where I suppose again there was at least a dozen of us on that, and myself and Damien Farrell were in the water doing the arms. And that was in a 25-foot tank, which was, again, crazy. You do find yourself doing ridiculous things as a puppeteer, and then you get removed from the scene later. And the trick is to be in that scene, but not have anybody register you're there, which was the thing with BB-8 as well, because I would often be with the rod version of BB-8. I would be behind it about 4 feet, and I would have control over the pitch and the roll of the head, and Dave would have the yaw control, and I'd have the gross body movement. But I would also do its dialogue. So when Ray would be asking BB-8 questions, I'd be doing all that stuff back to her to give her something to bounce off, but I would never make eye contact with Daisy while that scene was going on because it would just distract her. So you have to be present in the scene, but not in the scene at all. And you have to keep out of the way and hide and just stay out of the way of the cameras and as much as you can to minimize the amount of removal work they have to do with you later. So you kind of have to think, you've got to think technically and artistically at the same time, if you artistically, but you know, from a performance point of view, you just have to kind of be doing this crazy little dance with cameras as well. It was always good fun. Yeah,
well, you do have to be there to make it actually work, but then you, as you said, don't have to be there, and you don't want to be in the eye line of the actor so that she's going, BB-88, because if it's a close up, any slight movement from the eyes makes it a little bit more difficult for them.
I mean, the other one with the animatronic stuff as well. When you're running people's faces as well, you're normally way away from them. So you're either eyeballing it or you're watching it on a monitor, and sometimes the character that you're performing is only this big on your monitor, and there'll be 12 of you crammed around a monitor in a corner, and you're often speaking to the performer inside the head through a microphone, and you're giving them what we call blow cues because you're not allowed to actually talk because they're recording live sound. So sometimes you make little noises that they don't pick up, and that gives people cues. I know if you've had Derek and Tom on over this weekend, Derek Arnold or Tom Wilton, they talk about this because they're in those heads a lot. So Paul Casey again as well. These guys are working completely blind, and you have to be their eyes a lot of the time because they don't come out of those heads. So that's another thing entirely is to be able to guide a fellow performer around quite a hazardous set and keep an eye on them and keep them safe and work a rapport with them where they know that if you say stop, they stop there and then. And so you just have to guide them around. So that's another part of that job that people don't even really consider as a thing, but it's good fun. It is good fun.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff. I was lucky enough to be a satyr on Narnia: Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and the head actually had 2 little TVs that were there, but the camera was up in the horn. So everything that we that I was moving was up high and had to run across the deck, and it was just.
So did you have a camera of what was the camera pointing outwards, or were we getting a feed of what the camera was seeing from externally? Because sometimes
what the camera was seeing up the top,
Okay, so you could see where you were going, because sometimes with these things, I always find it easier to see what the camera is seeing, because that way you know what you look like on camera, rather than what the floor is, and you just rely that no one's. I did Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy years ago, and also Hellboy 2, and we both had I had cameras in there. We wore these goggles under the heads, but I always wanted to see what the thing looked like. Because you don't know sometimes that if your head might have gone over to the side, and you can kind of position yourself to look good on camera, and then just rely on the people that are guiding you to make sure you don't fall over. There were lots of different ways of doing it.
No, it was a crazy thing. I'd been in the suit for about 30 minutes, and they said, now I need you to run across the deck. It's pitching like the boat was going up and down. Do it on your tippy toes in sand shoes, and we're throwing water cannons and everything, and we're just going to take the safety rail off for this film.
You'll be fine.
That was fun.
You said you could do it when you wrote in.
It's just like, you've done this before. I said, well, I've been Patrick Starfish at a theme park. Does that count? I don't know. But now, you mentioned the Muppets, and you grew up with the Muppets and everything like that, myself included. Love the Muppets. It was just amazing to watch what Jim Henson did with those guys, and Sesame Street when it first came out in black and white and all that type of stuff. And you've worked on a couple of the Muppet films as well. Muppet Treasure Island is one of my favorites. But out of all the Muppets, who would have to be like your favorite Muppet? Whether you've been a part of helping him or her come to life, or just your personal favorite, really.
My personal favorite, I suppose, there's a few. I mean, I'm a big fan of Animal. I used to like the way the way that Frank used to do him. I like Beaker a lot as well, just because he's just absolutely hapless. and always getting put upon and blown up. And Gonzo as well, just because he's mental, you know, absolutely crazy attitude towards everything. Yeah, I mean, it was with the Muppet stuff. When they come over, a lot they bring their guys with them, so you only ever really get to operate one of the big Muppets if the other performer that normally does it has they came over and did the X Factor in the UK, and I did Fozzie for that because Eric, who now does all Frank's characters, was doing Piggy, so I got to do Fozzie. But they're fun. They're fun things to go just to sort of look at those. Oh, it's the Muppets. There you go. You can touch one of the Muppets. It's basically say if you've been around as long as some of us have, they're nice sort of things to be a part of. But I did a lot of stuff for the Jim Henson Company in England that were kind of Muppet productions, like as you mentioned, the Hoobs, Mop Top Shop was another one, and they were kind of Muppet related stuff, which is really sweet because that way, with a lot of those, you get to go in and make your own character. Not, I don't mean make your own character, but I mean, you know, sort of form the personality and work it and do the you know, do the voices and that kind of stuff, which is a lot of fun. As a performer to kind of reflect those muscles, it's quite nice.
Yeah, no, it's operating puppets is good for a laugh.
Yeah,
we did have one of my troopers had to ask the question, Elmo, love him or hate him?
Love him.
Yeah,
absolutely love him.
I know.
Yeah, how can you not love Elmo? He's just this sort of like cute little 4-year-old. He's fantastic. I think, you know, he's an empire unto himself now as well, which is he is a huge character. Yeah, I like Elmo. I think Elmo's great. I like the film. I like Elmo in Grouchland. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, that was cute. I mean, again, you have kids, and well, that's the excuse I use for watching.
Yeah, you keep telling everybody that. Yeah, you keep telling everyone.
Yeah. Shut up! All right, let's get. Just always fun. And look, are you working on? Well, Spitting Images season 2 is coming up. Here in Australia, we have a movie by the Jim Henson film, which is in production at the moment, called Portable Doors.
Oh, great.
Which is fantastic. But is there anything other than Spitting Images that you can actually tell us about? Because sometimes
there's something I can't. There's a couple of things I can't talk about. But recently I've been doing video game voiceovers. So if anyone is lucky enough to have got their hands on a PlayStation 5, I do the voice of Bot Top on a game called Destruction All Stars, which has been quite fun. I think that was one of the ones they gave away quite early on to get people to sort of join the network. So there's kind of a demolition derby type game, and if you run over Box Top, that's me doing the screaming. There's another game that's coming out, I think at one point this year. We don't have a release date for it. It's called Lost in Random, and that looks like a lot of fun. The trailer looks it's got a certain sort of Tim Burton aesthetic to it, and it looks like a really interesting and dark game, and I've done a couple of characters on that, which again I can't go into too much detail about, but there's a couple of other things on the way as well. But Spitting Image is going to be my focus now, probably till the end of the year. So we'll be giving Boris and sort of Joe Biden and whoever else sticks their head above the parapet and kicking.
There's a few colourful characters out there at the moment. You might be able to do our Prime Minister ScoMo or Scotty from Marketing.
I'm not sure. I think we did have him on the last series. We definitely did the lady from New Zealand, Jacinda Ahern. We did her like Mary Poppins, so we did a different Mary Poppins song with her quite a lot. She's practically perfect in every way, so she got her fair share. Yeah.
Oh, which is funny. No, there's politicians at the moment. Let's not go into those guys.
Yeah, let's just not.
yeah, they're much more fun to make fun of than to talk about.
Exactly.
Which is good. No, well, I mean, yeah. Would you ever think of, coming to work in Australia if you ever got the chance?
I'd love to. Again, with any of these things, whether it's sort of with work or conventions or whatever, you go where you're asked. You know, it's. I was down in Australia a couple of years ago for the Supernova conventions. We were. Where did we go? We went to. It was Brisbane. I want to say Brisbane, Adelaide. I think that makes sense.
Could have been, because it's Melbourne and Sydney as well.
Yeah, we didn't do Melbourne and Sydney, so we did Brisbane and Adelaide. Yeah, that was so we did those two, and then we had a great time, and everybody was brilliant. And I met the garrison down there, and it was lovely to see everybody. And I'd love to come back. Yeah, but again, it all comes down to where you get invited, and if you can make it work schedule wise, So that's the other thing. I mean, if I'm not working so much, then it's good to come out and do the conventions, but unfortunately you can't do them if you are working. And at the moment, with travel being what it is, who knows? Who knows when we'll all be back again? But hopefully it will be soon. I sort of hope it will sort of clear up as quickly as possible, because I want to get out and see everybody again. Because I've been a Star Wars fan for 1,000 years, and it's always lovely to sort of again meet the 501st Garrisons or the Legion or whoever else is around, because it's just nice to meet and talk about Star Wars with people.
Well, yeah, we are the ultimate Star Wars nerds
Exactly.
at times. I mean, yeah. Brisbane's my home garrison, so that's the Redback Garrison, and you got Brisbane and the Gold Coast. So we actually have two Novas, which are an hour and a half away from each other, or an hour away from each other, which is pretty crazy.
Too.
Yeah, we love to chat to you guys. So make sure if you do come down.
I always come and find you. And if ever there's we're there with all of these wherever I go, and it's normally a lot in the States, and there's usually a dinner, a 501st dinner, which I will invariably appear at some time or another. So it's I brought Tim Rose down to one as well at one time, and he had the time of his life. So it's always nice to see the Legion guys. It's always fun.
Yes, here in Australia we do like the odd beverage or two.
I hadn't heard. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, us convicts, we like to drink, which is. I promised I wouldn't mention the cricket, so we'll just leave that one well alone as well.
You can mention it as much as you like. I have no clue. Oh. I'm afraid I have no feelings about it whatsoever.
Are you sure you're English? All right. Okay.
Possibly not. Who can say? Who can say at this point? I know we got no points in the Eurovision Song Contest. I know that much. This is fascinating Star Wars chat, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, we're going on there. Now, I didn't see, but have you managed to do anything on the Mandalorian or anything?
No,
like
the Mandalorian was shot out in LA, so that wasn't I wasn't around. They wasn't invited for that one because again they have their own crew, they have their own people, so they did all that over there. And then I know Andor's been filming, but I was away doing other things, so I've not been involved in that either. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Know a lot of people that were doing it, so I'm not involved as yet in any of the TV stuff, but hopefully that will change at one point. But no, I've done my run of five of the movies, and who could ask for anything more at this point? It's if I don't get to do any more, then I've definitely had an amazing run. Because again, as I said, I was 7 in 77, and to come and be part of something, and to work with a character that has become so popular with the fans, and with the droid builders and everybody like that, was just the term "living the dream" is a really overused term. But I do remember talking to Dave Chapman. We've been in the desert for about 2 weeks, and I just remember turned around and just said to him, "If this is a dream, I wake up from this, I am going to be angry for weeks, because it's just." You can wake up and say, I had a dream I was in Star Wars, and it's just, it was, I've been so very, very lucky. And I think, over the period of this weekend, I know a few of the guests you've got coming on, and I think they'll say exactly the same thing, because we all grew up on it. And it's this weird thing about Star Wars is it's generational, because I was original, I was original trilogy. And then to see the prequels come out and the kids that really, really love the prequels to grow up now, and they're their favorite movies. And then the same will happen with the sequels. I meet kids who are 6, 7, 8 years old that are just obsessed with Kylo Ren, or little girls dressed as Rey, and and they're really, really into it. And then give that another, because the thing I said to someone the other day, in 4 years' time, The Force Awakens is going to be 10.
Yeah,
it's going to be its first decade of The Force Awakens. It's just gone like that. And give it when it hits 20, Star Wars Celebration is just going to be talking about that. It's going to be that big celebration for that and that generation of kids. People come to the table when I go to conventions, and it's 3 generations of Star Wars fans. And it's really interesting to hear their different takes on the different versions and the different periods of Star Wars, and that I find absolutely fascinating. But for me, it's when you see a 7-year-old wielding a lightsaber with a crossbeam, you know, or little girl dressed as Rey, or girl dressed as John, you know, there's Finn or Rose, or any of those characters that have appealed to children, you know, and they've really got into that. And that for me is where the fun in this is. I mean, we're all kids at heart, but it's, you know, it's when you see them, you know, I just sort of, I mean, I'm a big Star Wars collector as well. And I see people critique the toys, whether they're very good or not. And I just think, give that to an 8-year-old and he'll tell you if it's any good. You know, you know, how much they play with it. You know, it's that for me is where it's all at, really.
Well, you'd remember the original toys that came out, and you know, we all bought them, and we all had the lawnmower run over them because we left them in the grass from playing with them. And you know, you see today's people. I suppose it's like with the internet as well. When we were growing up, there was no internet. You'd talk to your friends on the phone, and we couldn't be doing stuff like this. And they go, "Oh, this figure is just not accurate because of X, Y, Z." It's like, did you see the original figures? And we thought they were the most amazing things.
Yep. I've still got all mine. I still have all of them. And
my mother threw them all out, including three vinyl Cape Gowers.
No.
Because that's all they were selling up where we were. And it was like, and she went, no. And I'm like,
I just went on a what I do like. I mean, to say you can get anything on the internet now, as you just said, but I did quite recently go on a tour of Asda supermarkets to buy the retro versions of the Mandalorian figures, and I went on a little search, and I got a set of them. I actually drove around and got a set of these things, and we're moving quite soon, so I'm going to actually have a thing with all my old figures in, and I'm just going to put those in there with them, just because I love the fact that they are sort of the deliberately shonky. You know, like the old ones were, and I love that stuff. So that's I'm still kind of into all that kind of thing.
But yeah, you're 100% correct with, you know, it is a generational thing. I was lucky enough to be taken to the cinemas, and I grew up in a place called Townsville, which is in North Queensland, and you know, everyone was there. You drag your kids there. It didn't really matter that there were 3 or 4, and you're just looking at it and going, and it's just fantastic. And we had a big charity event down here in on the Gold Coast at a theme park called Dreamworld, where our final one, we had 220 characters there. It was mental, a fully moving R2-D2 Chewies.
Fantastic.
And we had to do a Jedi Academy, and as you said with the Kylo Rens, you know, there was 10, 20 Kylo Rens there, and all they wanted to do was bash Jedi, which was, you know, at the 501st person, it really made my heart really warm that they wanted to kill all the Jedis. It's like, yes. Unfortunately, at that stage, I was dressed as a Jedi. Yuck.
I was at Dragon Con a few years ago, and I took a piece of video of a little girl dressed as Rey, and I think she must have been 3, 4 years old, and a fully grown adult dressed as Kylo Ren. And she was just going at this guy with his lightsaber. And it's one of the funniest things I've seen in ages, because this guy was completely humoring her. It was probably her dad. But he's got his lightsaber. He's doing it nice and slow, and she's whacking away at his shins and falling over, rolling up and getting back up again. And it was just brilliant. It was just so much fun to see. And I love that stuff. So,
did you manage to acquire a BB-8 from?
I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing from that movie. I mean, because we you know, everyone says, oh, you know, what did you get? What did you get? Didn't get anything. Didn't take a photo. Not a single photograph, because we were, you know, we were told we couldn't. And so, you know, we all signed our paper, you know, our pieces of paper. And there's that thing where, even if they're for personal use, just didn't do it. I just didn't want to get fired. I loved the job. I wanted to keep the job, and I wanted to keep going back to do the job. You know, and so it's I just didn't have a thing, you know, not one. Luckily, there have been some great photographs that have come out since of me doing the job, so I managed to get sort of official ones. And there's a couple of really nice ones. I actually got myself and Dave and Matt and Josh as well. We got to be in the Last Jedi, so we were soldiers in crate, and so they kitted us all out, and they got me down the front screaming orders. So that was quite a fun day. So there was a nice photograph taken of us in all the uniforms, and so we have, you know, we got to take some photographs home that way. But no, I don't have a single thing from the films. And you know, I'd love a BB-8 if anybody wants to make me one. I'll be perfectly happy to take one of those home. But
I'll have a talk to some of our guys in our garrison.
Some of the builders, they're amazing.
Well, they're actually they're 3D printing these things, which is nuts. And they're going to be able to roll and do everything because they're just printing all the bits and pieces like that. So, I guess 3D printing is the way of the future. I'm not that bright.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, we didn't 3D print the movie BB-8s, but I've seen so many of the ones that the UK droid builders and the US ones, and I'm sure down in Oz as well, that there are whole groups of them that just have got the plan for these things, and they make them. And they're amazing, absolutely amazing. I mean, I know that the guys who built BB-8, the original Josh and Matt, they were amazed at how fast the droid builders jumped on it after seeing one piece of video and a brief thing of a trailer. The same thing happened with DO. They took one look at that and went, okay, right, I think we know how to make that. And this, because the ones that you see rolling around at premieres and on Celebration and stuff like that, coming out to do the publicity, aren't the ones we use in the movie, because they're invariably puppets and different. They've got stabilizers and things like that. So when Josh and Matt were charged with building an actual BB-8 for the premiere, they sort of scratched their head for a while and they worked out how to do it. But I mean, the first time Dave and I ever saw that, we were out in South Africa doing a commercial, and it was the Anaheim stream, and out it rolled, and Dave and I were just like, they've done it. We just, oh my God, and then brilliantly, Josh Lee sent me a text message, not half an hour afterwards, just sent me this little message that said, don't worry, boys, it can't do what you do. Which is really, really sweet of him, because amongst that whole hype and hoopla, he'd taken time out of his day to write us a reassuring little message that we were going to keep our jobs, which was really nice of him. But no, they were amazed at how fast the fans will jump on that, and they'll go, okay, how do we do this? And the robotics. Again, here we are, with a robotics charity, and it's people like these guys are the ones that jump on that and just do crazy stuff and go, I know how to make this. And it's brilliant that all this stuff can be applied to just a fandom like Star Wars, and just that technology working with people. And I just think it's great. It's great.
Yeah, and I think it's that inspiration of creativity that it comes along with, particularly with all the costumes and puppets and props like that. I know we've got a little Yoda that if you really wanted to make the lips move and everything like they could, but no one's got the money to do that down here.
Right,
but,
yeah.
But and Ewoks and all that type of stuff. People are just building these little props to add to the conventions and everything like that, particularly in the 501st world. And we're all trying to make things happen. World. Myself and our GML, we're looking at doing an evil Yoda and an evil Yaddle. Just because we're evil.
Very good. Okay, yes. We should have more Yaddle. Yeah. We need more Yaddle.
Yeah, so we're going to do an evil version of both of those, which should be hilarious.
Are you going to do them as hand puppets?
Well, we're going to try to. Yeah. So I'm just working on the molds at the moment. As you can see there, a bit of R2D2 there, working on that kind. That's old school. I can't 3D print to save myself. As I like to say to my friends, I'm a bit of a techno-tard. And just not that bright when it comes to that, but I can build stuff, which is always fun.
Well, what was fascinating with me working on these new ones is that Lee Towers and Oliver Steeples, who were the guys who built R2 for the new movies, were from the R2D2 Builders Club in the UK. So they do. I mean, again, Lee's on with you at one point, so he'll tell you'll hear this story anyway. But I just think it's fantastic. Because I was a fan anyway, but I've been working in the film industry. Lee had never done a movie. And they went, do R2D2. And then suddenly, bang, there he was, with R2D2 and the Millennium Falcon and Harrison Ford. And it's like, he did an amazing job with it. So it was a real, for a lot of us, actually, because I always say that the Force Awakens was the most expensive fan film ever made, because everybody on it was completely into it and an utter fan. So it was just a crazy thing to sort of be there on the Millennium Falcon with Harrison Ford, or or meeting Carrie Fisher or Mark or any of those guys. So it was definitely as I said, living the dream is a very overused term, but every now and then you get to use it properly.
Well, they've made Star Wars films in America. They've made them in the UK. I think it's time that they brought them down.
Well, they did two. They did two in Australia. They've done two.
Well, they did. But it's Sydney. Sydney
doesn't.
Sydney doesn't count. Sydney doesn't count.
I'm sure people in Sydney would be arguing with that, but yeah.
I'm from Queensland, so we've got our State of Origin Rugby League coming up, so we're all a bit feisty when it comes to state rivalry. But here on the Gold Coast, we'd love to maybe get some there. There's a couple of the 501st guys that actually work in the film industry in different departments to what I am, so we'd all wet ourselves if that ever happened. Just a little bit.
Well, you're getting the 501st are kind of making their way into those things anyway. I mean, there's a bunch of in the Mandalorian, wasn't there? And there was a whole bunch of guys that they used on The Force Awakens as well, in the scene with Hux giving the big address on top of that great big platform. There was a bunch of guys from the 501st in there as well. And I think it's great that the guys are being brought in for this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's also a testament to how these guys, or how we all get our armor together to make it look like it's walked straight off the movie set. And that's what the 501st prides ourselves. We're a costuming club, but we're lucky enough to help charities, including First Robotics, which is what we're here for as well. Because we want more kids to learn about maths and science and to create stuff like this, and do what we've been talking about with seeing something on screen for about 2 seconds, and then all of a sudden they go, "Yeah, I can build that." So which is fantastic. So don't forget to click the link, guys. That's floating around. We can't see it where we are, but the PR people have sorted all that out. So if you could click the link and donate $1, donate $10, donate $100. I know it's tough in COVID times, but helping people get their maths and science with First Robotics along is really going to just help more movies and make more cool stuff like BB-8 and R2D2 and C3PO and all that kind of stuff. So donate if you can. That would be great. But I don't know, how long have we got? I'm not too sure.
I think we've still got another 15 minutes. So
Oh geez, lucky. I was going. I was waiting for the wind up.
Wrap this up. Oh no, I'm bored with Brian. No. And now I'm going to ask you. So, what is your age? How old are you?
So I'm 40, almost 47.
Okay, so what was the first Star Wars movie you saw in the theaters?
New Hope. So we didn't have babysitters. So when I was growing up, we were dirt poor. But my parents saved up the money and went, "We're going to the cinemas," and we had to wait a lot longer for it to get to Townsville because it would go capital cities and everything like that.
Okay, right.
And they just dragged us down. I remember sitting in the front, looking up, going, "Holy crap!"
Yeah.
I was only about 4, 3 or 4, and not much of it registered at that stage, other than holy dooly, this is awesome.
Right.
And then once it came out, later on VHS, it was just one of those things that just kept on getting played over. Empire Strikes Back, I was a lot older, and that's why that's my favorite film, because I was a lot older and I appreciate it more. But also Hoth was the scene where you just looked at it and went, how are they doing this? I mean, it was cool with the X-Wings on the Death Star in New Hope, and Tatooine's one of my favorite places as well. But my first armor was Sand Trooper, because go dirty or go home, which is always fun. You don't want to be a shiny whitey, just remember that, kids, don't be a shiny whitey. But Hoth just blew our minds away because the technology had gotten a bit better, and they had the AT-ATs going along, and all the poor little rebel Hoth troopers there, and they're just getting nailed, and you're like, "Oh yeah, get them!" Even back then, I was like, "Yeah, the bad guys are the good guys."
You talk about Tatooine being cool. I mean, when we did the Rise of Skywalker, the last scene in the movie at the moisture farm was just something else to go, because they kept that set quite a long way away from everybody. And we shot that bit with the Millennium Falcon and Rey coming down and BB-8 coming down the ramp and everything like that. And you just look across the moisture farm, you thought, "Oh, this is really cool." And somewhere at Lucasfilm, there was a photograph of me coming out of the moisture farm, out of the door, coming up the steps. And so I'm trying to track that one down. But the set of the internal part, she comes down on the sled where it's all full of sand and everything, and it's kind of all been overblown. It was actually at Pinewood. And someone said to myself and Dave, "Oh, you should go and have a look what's up on the back lot." So we went up there, and we sort of showed our passes and went up to and it was a raised set, so you got right up to the top and you look down. and we went around the corner. It's just so amazing just to see that view. You know, I know the original one is still there; you can stay in it, but it was just really cool to see how they rebuilt that. And it's the same as, you know, when we went back onto M stage, where the Millennium Falcon was for the first, you know, for the Fourth Awakens, and it was just a stunning set because it was you felt like you'd been on it before, even though you hadn't. And Dave and I got to go in there just as the set department and just finished dressing it. So whenever a film crew move onto a set, they just destroy it. They pull walls out, you know, they put cables everywhere. But actually, when we went on there, we went up the ramp, we turned right, we walked past the corridor to the cockpit. There's the gun ladders, and we walked in, and there were 3 people just sat there looking. And Dave and I had a little look. And I said, "Did you do this?" And they went, "Yeah." And we went, "It's so cool." And then we just ran up the corridor and sat in the Millennium Falcon and played with the controls and the hyperdrive levers. And you're really not supposed to do that at all.
Continuity.
Well, yeah, but no, I mean, because if everybody did it, you know, the set would be absolutely knackered before anybody got anywhere near it. But it was pretty cool. We used to, when people would come and work on the film, if they did a couple of days, you know, with the creatures or whatever, like when we were shooting Mad's Castle. We'd try and just go, right, before you leave, come with us. And we'd get them onto M stage. We sort of wave at security. And I would usually have my green suit on, so everyone just sort of knew, oh, there's the guy does BB-8. So we'd sort of sneak people on. And if you came onto the set from the back, because the Falcon, the inside doesn't match the outside. So it's just wood and scaffold. You know, you've seen film sets, so it's all just wood and scaffold. If you come in from one end of M stage, you could just see the cockpit, so you knew exactly what it was. But if you went in through the back, you could walk people as far as the ramp, and they would often get halfway up the ramp before they realised what they were doing. And you know, as Kevin Smith completely breached his non-disclosure agreement when he went to visit, he burst into tears. It was hilarious. And I took a few people on set that just men in their 40s and 50s who just went, "Oh, I can't believe I'm here," you know. And it was a lot of fun to take people on that set. And then weird because they did the one for Lando's version of it, of Solo, which was all pristine and new, and there was a mini bar and just like a cape, you know, a cape closet and stuff like that. And it was a different thing again. It was just like, this is really strange but lovely, but it was just completely different from the thing that you've been looking at for 35, 40 years. You know, it was a fun thing to be a part of, and sort of a process to see how the set guys. And again, you'd speak to Gary Tompkins, who at one point this weekend, and he was, you know, responsible for all that stuff. So just how do we redesign this or retrofit this so that it looks like it will look in 15 years? You know, what would have made the Millennium Falcon look like this heap of junk? You know, so there's lots of fun stuff that these guys just do. I think a lot of people don't think about how much thought goes into this stuff. You know,
exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to paint the Commodore, one of the paint crew on the Commodore for Thor Ragnarok, which was the yellow and black and red thing that the Jeff Goldblum character, he owned that as his little.
Oh, was that the one they stole? Is that the one they stole together? Yeah, okay. Yeah,
they went through the anus. They went through the devil's anus.
Yeah. I love that movie. Yes.
Yeah, so I painted a lot of the inside of that with some of the crew as well, and we did this massive, amazing galley, and as you're saying, the set deck. We need to do this, that, make it look fantastic, and then it got cut from the film and was in the deleted scenes. We were like, 3 months of painting. Are you serious?
So that happens all the time. I mean, again, there are so many creatures that Neil Scanlon and the amazing team just put so much heart and soul into that will appear on camera like that, and they're gone. You know, and just a lot of it. We refer to a lot of what we do as walking wallpaper. You know, you'd miss it if it wasn't there, and that for me is the joy of Star Wars. Is that, you know, those characters that just art in the background, and you go, who's that guy? You know, what does he do? What's his story? And then of course somebody will go away and write a story about that, and he'll get an action figure, and, you know, Constable Zulio, you know. You know, all those ones that just kind of you think, oh, he's going to be bigger. It's not even in the movie. You know, it's just crazy stuff.
Yep.
But no, I like that about that. And I like all the sort of the spin-off comics and where somebody just goes, I'm interested in that guy in the back of the cantina, or that dude in Jabba's palace that we don't really know much about. And that's sort of, again, part of the joy of Star Wars, because it really sparks, you know, as a kid, I always wanted to know why C-3PO had a silver leg.
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
And again, that was the thing that JoJo did with Anthony with the red arm. You know, it's for me that would be the interesting thing about I'd act that out with my figures. You know, so it's very interesting to have, you know, as an adult, and I do use the term loosely, to be able to play Star Wars on a much bigger scale. You know, when you suddenly find you're running through the desert with you being chased by TIE fighters and it's all exploding around you, it's sort of, how did you get here? This is really strange. But, you know,
just going to keep pinching myself.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the set and the way those guys build those things. Nema Outpost on the Force Awakens is just amazing, because everything in there was in there. You know, it was one of the most brilliantly realised sets I've ever worked on. I think I did Hellboy 2 years ago for Guillermo del Toro, and we worked in the Troll Market, and that Troll Market set was just super detailed, and you could walk onto any one of the stalls, open one of the drawers, and it'd be full of glass eyes. And they weren't supposed to be other people's eyeballs, they were just glass eyes. It was where these trolls had collected glass eyes from whoever they got them in New York, and just, I sell glass eyes. Another one sold wooden shoes. Another one would sell, I don't know, there were stuff, you know, like dried cats, because they ate cats, or, you know, whatever. And this set was, you could put a camera anywhere on this set and you would film something crazy. And the same Nema Outpost was very similar to that, and so was the casino set as well. That was just so beautiful, and it's not until you step off the set and look around where the scaffolding was that you'd go, oh, okay, that breaks the illusion. But you could stand in the middle of it when the cameras were rolling and do a 360-degree shot, and you wouldn't see anything that shouldn't be on camera. But absolutely stunning. Yeah.
I just had a question. Someone's asked, who is your favorite Star Wars character then? Not including BB-8.
Well, either Chewbacca or Yoda, really. Chewie was always my favorite as a kid. The first figure I had. Chewie and Darth Vader were the first two I got, and I always used to love Chewie, and Yoda. Just that comes really from a puppetry point of view. I appreciate the performance of Yoda and the way that Frank did it in The Empire Strikes Back more now than I ever did as a kid. Just because there's a because it's a practical puppet as well. I mean, my favourite shot in the whole thing is when he says, "Luminous beings away, not this crude matter," and he pinches Luke's arm, and it's just there, you know. And I just think that's an amazing thing. The Yoda definitely, and say in Chewie, and what's lots of fun with Chewie now as well, because I know Jonas quite well. So to see Jonas take up the mantle of Chewbacca and have kids come to set, and you would never see Jonas without the head on. So they would he would be in an easy up, one of those big kind of tents, and they dress him up. They usually know if there were visitors. So I once saw a tiny little girl, I think she must have been about 3 or 4, and they opened the flaps of this tent. And now Jonas is something like 7'2", and Chewie's got lift in his feet, and his head is quite long. So he's knocking nearly 8 feet. And when he sticks his head out from under the flap of the tent, and he just looms above this little girl, and she sort of looks at him, and Jonas does the barks and stuff on set as well for reference. And so and he calls this kid over, and this little girl goes over to him, and he points to his bag and opens the flap on his bag, and he's got sweets in the bag for kids. And this little girl took these sweets off him and just sort of looked at him and scuttled back to her mother, and it was just an amazing thing to see. And there's also, they took him to a school in Ireland as well, which is on YouTube. If you could just put Chewbacca visits school, and you'll probably find it. And it's one of the funniest things you've ever seen in your life. These little Irish kids are climbing all over him in this suit, and whoever was looking after him must be like, not the suit. But no, it's brilliant to see kids interact with those characters as well. And I'm sure you guys know all the time, because that's what you do. You know, it's
yeah. Well, we have a really cool Chewie. Well, we've got a couple more Wookiees coming our way in the Redback Garrison, but we got one Chewie, and he's been to a lot of things, and it's just amazing when you see these little 3 or 4 year olds just come up and they cuddle his leg, and they're like, "Thanks, Chewie,"
it's not just
and
kids.
off they go.
It's not just kids though. It's that everybody wanted to cuddle Chewbacca on The Force Awakens. That was just all they wanted to do.
Well, he's cuddly. He's just a big teddy
very,
bear.
Very, very cuddly.
Which is fantastic. But no, I'd have to say R2-D2 was probably one of my favorites, but Yoda as well, because it just blew your mind that they were just puppets. And again, I love the Muppets. That was I love Kermit the Frog. It's the Muppet Show. I used to do impersonate everybody from Cookie Monster to the Count, and that kind of stuff really spoke to me. So it's really, really cool and amazing to be speaking to someone like yourself who gets to do a lot of that. That's something I have a passion to do. I mean, I've got these 2 idiots behind me that I've done silly songs and stuff like that for people. And a friend of mine, she had pancreatic cancer, so I gave her all these really cool videos of these 2 idiots playing with snakes.
Brilliant.
And
Brilliant.
And she just loved it and thought, those guys are morons. And it worked out really well. So always put a smile on her face.
Yeah, I mean, anything that like with puppets and stuff, they can have that great interaction. I mean, what was nice with The Last Jedi is to see Frank come back and do it, and to they rehearsed the whole thing in secret. And so Dave Chapman, who works with me on BB-8, Damien and Colin, Damien and Colin were Damien Farrell and Colin Purvis were also 2 of our core puppeteers who went through most of the movies with us, and we did the porgs together as well. So it was the 4 of us doing those. But they got to go off and work with Frank, and Frank is very meticulous in his rehearsal way. So he wants it done exactly the same time every single time to the beat, and we're doing a lot of it to counts. And it was just very, very, very cool that they recreated Yoda to the the exact specs of the original. And it was strange to watch the movie, because it's interesting when you start shooting things from different angles and different lighting, that because everybody's really familiar with Yoda for probably less than 7 minutes worth of screen time across all those movies, and they went, that's what Yoda looks like. But actually, when you move the camera on something and just put a different bit of lighting and change an angle, it looks very different. But that puppet looked exactly the same, and it was brilliant to see him do that and to come back and bring Yoda back to life again in that old style. It was absolutely fantastic.
That's fantastic. Well, we're getting the wind up, Brian.
Okay.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to speaking to us, to joining us here to help raise some money for First Robotics and helping kids get their science and math and everything like that. So make sure, guys, if you enjoyed this and you're going to enjoy the rest of the show, hit the link, donate some money, and Brian, you come to the Gold Coast or Brisbane or anything like that, there will be beer waiting for you, my son.
Fantastic. Thanks ever so much for having me, and stay safe, everybody. I hope I do see you all again soon, and may the force be with you.